I notice there's a lot of confusion about what grace actually is. And so grace can be interpreted in a number of different ways. The way that it's most often interpreted is just like when you have this experience that God has come to you in some form or another. In some way or another you see that, this great fortune that has come to me, that's grace. Me meeting my teacher, that's grace. Me falling in love with, whoever it is, that's grace. Or it can even be when we go out into nature, we climb a mountain, and we experience this, our consciousness expanding, the higher and higher we get as we go up the mountain. Oftentimes that's seen as grace. But that's normally not how I use the term. When I'm speaking about grace, I'm speaking about the direct experience of God coming into your energetic body, your subtle body. I would say God coming into your life, but all those experiences I described before is God coming into your life. What I mean by grace is simply, like say even in this moment, if you open your heart and you call upon God. So sometimes I start the morning like this. I say, God, will you come into me? Will you bless me with your love? Will you fill me with your truth? May your peace descend into me and become my very nature. And see, just saying that right now, I feel radically different than I did before I asked that question. So to me, opening to grace is you opening your heart to the direct transmission of God. And I'm not talking about the idea of peace. I'm talking about just saying the word love. God, will you show me love? When I say that word love, when I open my heart to God's love in me, as me, it's this moment of humility, of me saying, I'm not going to live from my ego in this moment, but I'm going to open my heart to God and to her transmission in me, to her love in me. It's been a very interesting journey for me on this path, because I came into this world already knowing this, already experiencing this. As a kid, if there was any struggle, I would open my heart to God. And immediately I felt the answer of God's grace. Maybe the outward life, nothing changed. The kid was still picking on me, at recess on the playground. But I felt as if God was there with me. And so it's about this direct relationship with God. So many people, they say, I don't know if God is real, if there is a God, if this exists or that exists. That has never been a question for me. Anytime I'm in pain or crisis, or hell, anytime when I just want to open to greater and greater levels of my divinity, I invite God into me. The beautiful thing about this is that God is always there waiting. It's like this huge heavenly force and presence, presiding over the whole earth, presiding over our individual life. It's like calling on this wonderful force of love, of truth, of protection, of safety. When I teach, I sit down, and before I sit down, I say this prayer: God, will you come into this room? Will you bless everyone here? And I feel as if my being is flooded with grace, flooded with this transmitting power of love. Now, most of the time in my everyday waking state, I have a non-dual experience of God, which means I just feel peace as my nature, a sense of love as my nature, a sense of unity and, say, oneness with life. And that's what's called, waking up to our true nature. But beyond waking up to our true nature, to me, I've always also had a very personal relationship with God. And by personal, I mean not even so much egoically personal, but more personal in the sense that I'm inviting God into this form, into this presence, to act through me as me. This funny thing begins to happen as you invite God into you to act through you as you. You begin to feel less and less personal. You begin to feel as if that you are a force of God, a force of grace. And not like me, Craig Holliday, is this force of God. Not me, Craig, the individual ego. But that God is using this as an instrument. And as I open to being used, or as what my teacher said, we wake up to be a slave to God. Most people think, I wake up and I'll experience eternal freedom forever. And that enlightenment is all about me and my personal whatever. My personal bliss consciousness. To me, if you have the thought of enlightenment being about your own personal bliss consciousness and your own abundance and your own whatever it is that people want, everyone wants to have all these great spiritual experiences. But the closer you get to God, the more God makes you work. It's an interesting thing. Because you're opening to this greater force, this force of love in the world. And the way love works is love walks towards darkness. Love doesn't create a private heaven world for itself. Love walks towards darkness. And so this prayer is God, will you awaken in me? Will you shine your light through me? And it's this prayer that you're saying from yourself, from all of humanity, from the planet. Because in true non-duality, all these worlds become one. I think in the beginning stages of the spiritual path, we look at prayer and we look at opening to God as, God, what can you give me? I'll quit smoking if you make this thing happen or whatever. It's called bargaining with God. But the further we walk on the path and the more we mature in our heart, we realize that this path is not about us. It's about God waking up in us and shining her light through us as us. And so that's an incredible thing. It's a tall order. But this is how our world will change.